Welcome to OJAICAST. I'm your host, Christopher Noxon, here to dig in and share some samples and background on the incredible concerts, events, and artists featured at this year's 79th annual Ojai Music Festival. The festival runs from June 5th through the 8th, and there's an amazing program put together by this year's music director, MacArthur Award winner Claire Chase. On today's show, we're going to be talking with cellist Jay Campbell and composer Annea Lockwood. So let's get things started. Jay Campbell is a cellist and a member of the JACK Quartet, who's performed at venues around the world, including Carnegie Hall, Avery Fisher Hall, and the New York Philharmonic. The New York Times has described his playing as insatiably inquisitive and electrifying. Hey, Jay, thanks for joining us in your electrifying hair and self. Where are we catching you today? Where are you?
I am in my studio in New York. I live in Brooklyn. This
awesome.
is kind of my music space. So
nice. Well, we're excited that you're coming back to Ojai. You've been here a bunch.
Yeah.
What keeps you coming back? What is it about this festival?
I mean, I think it's the most adventurous festival in the US for classical music, and especially for experimental classical music. It's really, Ara doesn't hold back, and neither did Tom. And I think what's really cool about it from a performer's perspective is everyone who's there as an audience member listening to what you do, they're ready for anything. That's my favorite thing about it, that there isn't this. I think the audience has been cultivated to expect surprise. And I think that's a model that I think a lot of other music organizations in the classical music world could aspire a little more to. I think like often playing more experimental music and more traditional venues or festivals, sometimes I feel a pang of self-consciousness right as I start a piece of like, oh God, they're gonna hate this. Like this isn't what they expect. Like maybe I could win them over, but there's going to be a lot of people in the audience that are like, this isn't Beethoven or Tchaikovsky. And I love all that stuff, but the expectation that that's like all you get, I think that's weird. I wouldn't want that as an audience member. So I think Ojai doing that as an organization is really inspiring, and I think very needed in the US.
Yeah, I think we've come to just understand that we don't know what we're in for, and that's part of the fun of it. So among the pieces you played last year was this Lackaman piece for a morning concert, and it was just, I was looking at a video of it, and it's just a fascinating performance. There's, such crazy sounds coming out of your cello, and I just have to ask, you kind of annihilate your bow.
Yeah.
And I understand bows can be pretty pricey. Do you have a specific bow that you use for that kind of playing? Tell me about what that's like.
Yeah, I mean, I have a couple different bows. I'm generally not too precious about my gear. I think if I had like a Picot that was $100,000, I probably wouldn't use it for that piece. But I have some lower end beater bows that I have that are like, a couple $100. So if it breaks, it's not the end of the world. But yeah, that's a really physically intense piece. It's very grindy and scrapey and like super physical. And it's,
do you like
really
playing
fun
it? It's fun?
Yeah, it's really fun to play. It's I think it could be shocking to the right audience, which is, I actually have started to really like playing that piece and Lackaman's music in general for people who've never heard it before, because I think it can be really shocking in a really good way, and it gets really deep into the idea of how these types of sounds are very related to other unexpected types of sounds, like the granulation of strings when you're really like digging into the cello and you hear the individual perforations of the bow like ripping the string.
Those individual perforations, to be able to distinguish them is really kind of incredible thing as an audience member. It's not something that we're usually called on to sort of notice. So with the JACK Quartet, you're going to be doing 10 concerts at this year's festival, as I understand it. what does the preparation process look like for like such a large and very eclectic set of music?
Well, some of it, like all the quartet stuff, like just quartet stuff, we've done before somewhere else for
Right.
the most part. So it's, most of that's basically ready to go from
Yep.
touring it this season or last season. But we also just see a lot of music all the time, so we've gotten pretty fast as a group, just putting things together really efficiently. And everyone, I think, is very used to and aware of the lack of time in general. So everyone comes very prepared,
They're
and
ready. Yeah,
yeah,
they're ready to
everything's
go.
really efficient.
How long have you guys been playing together?
Well, Austin and I joined in 2017, I think. And
Mm-hmm.
before that, the group had been going, I think, about 10 years.
We had a great conversation with Marcos Balter in a previous episode, and one of the pieces we talked about was chambers. I guess you guys are doing that 10:30 on Saturday, June 7th. And he talked about the fact that the JACK Quartet has really embraced that piece. Let's have a little listen to a recording of that. What I'm struck by there is just how much subtle cueing and seemingly randomized playing is going on. But then you're all come into perfect syncopation in other portions. And I'm wondering, how do you achieve that? Like, what does the score look like to read that kind of aural dreamscape?
Yeah, so it's totally written out. Like every rhythm that we play is instructed, and we do our best to execute it. Um, but yeah, like you said, there are moments where it really locks in, and there's moments where it starts to drift. And so this kind of phasing thing is happening with the polyrhythms that he wrote. And then there's kind of some other. Uh, I would I wouldn't say it's like I wouldn't say it's like algorithmic, but it kind of feels like it's like stochastically just like moving in and out of focus, and like he does that with shifting the pitch up and down over like longer periods of time than the rhythms that are being accented. Also, we're like whistling at the same time. We're supposed to match the pitch that we're playing. So there's a little bit of a discrepancy often with that, just that pitch. So it makes this really complex overall texture that's kind of constantly evolving, that comes into focus for a second before it breaks off, and it kind of goes through these cycles of like becoming more chaotic and then becoming ordered and then more chaotic again. So it's yeah, it's really
Wow.
fun. It's really fun to play. Also, we're spatialized usually when we play it. So me and Chris, one of the violinists, we're in one part of the room, and John and Austin are way off in the other part of the room. So there's this spatial element that makes the rhythm even more difficult to to stay synchronized. But the effect, I think, is really worth it, because you start hearing this rotational, like three-dimensional, circular shifting of patterns, rather than it just being in the stereo field. It's really like all of these accents and conversational little like outbursts are kind of traveling around you in space. So that's a really nice thing to experience.
So I know you're also performing at the Friday night concert, and I think you're one of 10 cellos for the Julius Eastman super ambitious, really powerful piece, The Holy Presence of Joan d'Arc. We have a recording of this fellow cellist, Seth Parker Woods, playing all 10 cello parts. Let's take a listen to that. Julius Eastman's The Holy Presence of Joan d'Arc. To me, that sounds like Black Sabbath. That's just riffage. So Seth Parker Woods is going to be playing that piece with you at the festival. Have you played it with him before?
This will be my first time doing it.
Oh, cool. I can't imagine what that would be like to be among that kind of wall of cellos. Do you like it? Do you like playing with a bunch of other of the same instrument?
Yeah, I really like it, actually. I mean, I think cello is particularly well suited for this kind of like one instrument ensemble. Like, it doesn't quite work as well with, say, like flutes or violins. No shade to those instruments, but there's not quite as wide of a range. So, with the cello ensemble, you can get really like a full spectrum of sound. I think there's also just kind of a culture in cello world to just kind of be excited to like play with other cellists. Like, usually we're the only bass line in a string quartet or an ensemble, and so to get together and get to play every single part, there's a little bit of like a nerdy cello culture thing, and
I love it.
It's kind of rare. So yeah, it'll be fun, I think.
I'm super excited for that. Composer and percussionist Susie Ibarra is going to be at the festival this year, and I know you're playing her work Sky Islands. It's a new piece at the Sunday morning concert. That's at 10:30. Let's take a listen to that. A lot of different elements there. This is a new piece, and I imagine we talked about this before, but you presumably you haven't had a lot of time to work on it with other performers. Is that rehearsal process different than something like chambers?
Yeah, quartets work in such a kind of a weird, insulated way. Anytime you like venture out of quartet land and start introducing like outside players, it's like it really changes the process and the chemistry. We haven't worked with Susie, but we've been at the same festivals before, and obviously we've played with Claire. And actually, the quartet that played that piece, that was our grad student quartet in residence at Manus. So there's kind of a nice connection there. Basically, our students did it first. So
nice.
They're
nice.
They're doing what they should be doing, which is going out and like doing stuff better than we can. So it's a nice little connection there. But yeah, I love her music. I love Susie's music. I love her playing, and I think all the stuff that she does with Filipino instruments is also super interesting.
Yeah, it'll be fun to hear that combination of instruments on stage.
Yeah.
We're going to let you go, but we're asking all our guests to select a piece of music that you're either currently loving or that you go back to again and again as inspiration, just as sort of some variety. What would you like us to hear?
The specific album that I've been really into recently is like a Autechre album from 2016 called Elsec. I like to build synths and different electronic things, so I kind of stopped listening to Autechre for a little while, and I got back into it recently after having a conversation with the guy that arranged the Terry Riley, Sam Bermaher. And it just reminded me how good that stuff is and like how complicated the systems that they build are.
Amazing. Let's hear some Autechre. So Jay, thank you so much for being with us. We're so excited to have you hang out again, and hope we can all share a drink or take a walk or, spend some time. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks. Really, really, really excited to come back to Ojai. It's so beautiful there, and everyone's so nice and awesome. So see you all there.
Annea Lockwood is a New Zealand-born American composer whose work ranges from concert music to performance art to multimedia installations. She forged a strong connection with Pauline Oliveros and John Cage while studying music composition in Europe in the 1960s. Focusing on environmental and new sound sources, she has a deep affection for all things water-related and has a fascination with the visceral effects of sound. It's such a pleasure to have you with us today, Annea. Is this your first time coming to the Ojai Festival?
Yes, and I'm totally thrilled to be coming and most honored to be talking to you. It's an incredible program. I can't wait to get to Ojai.
Awesome. I mentioned your connection with Pauline Oliveros. One of your pieces set for the festival this year is Bayou Born for Pauline. Is that in reference to her?
Yes, it is. McGill University in Montreal commissioned 85 very short pieces. I think they were supposed to be 85 seconds long for Pauline's 85th birthday. And they were going to organize, in fact, they had already organized a festival around this event when she suddenly died. A few months later, they published the scores, and I started to enlist musicians to do a realization of Bayou Born. That piece is not only dedicated to her on that occasion of her 85th birthday, but it's very much a Pauline-focused piece. She grew up in Houston. I figured that as a kid, Pauline being what she was, she would have got her feet and her whole body into all the bayous. And she was such a fantastic improviser and so supremely sensitive to acoustic environments. I thought, if I could get Pauline to do one of the rivers, if she could do Buffalo Bayou, which is the major bayou, that would be perfect.
Amazing. Let's have a little listen to it to give a sense of what it sounds like. Such incredible sounds. They're drones. It sounds to me a little bit like whale songs. So this, I guess, was from the ensemble Maze. Tell us a little bit about the instrumentation there and what's happening.
Maze has been playing Bayou Born, realizing it for a long time. It's an ensemble of 6 musicians who are really superb. There's a mix of live instruments, electronics.
So I know the Pauline Oliveros documentary Deep Listening is going to be showing during the festival, actually on Saturday, June 7th. I just saw it at the Ojai Playhouse where they're going to be screening it during the festival, and I totally loved it. I'm curious about your thoughts having known her.
I haven't seen it.
Oh, you haven't seen it yet? Oh, great. All right, well, that'll be a treat for all of us. I didn't know much about her and her sort of biography, but it really covers quite a span of her work, and so it'll be fun to see that with you and the audience.
Does it convey something of how playful she was?
Yes, it
Great.
does. It
Excellent.
does. I'd also like to hear about the score for Bayou Born and what it looks like. I understand it's not traditional sheet music. It's sort of a beautiful map-like illustration.
It's a map which I stole from the New York Times. A very sort of simplified map of the bayous.
Yeah, we're looking at a sort of tendrils of rivers, bayous. It looks like 18th century, if I were to guess. It's a really beautiful schematic. So
the 6 converge on Houston. The 5 other bayous converge on Buffalo Bayou in Houston. It's a spatialized piece. I mean, the map gives us the opportunity to position the players in various parts of any space, and it's wonderful to be doing it out of doors. It's only the second time that's happened. The piece gradually darkens, as the players, or I ask the players to darken their sound, their timbres, their colors, as they move towards Houston, because Hurricane Harvey had happened not long before we premiered the piece. It was a devastating hurricane. There were many deaths. And we wanted to acknowledge that, and in a way do that first performance as an in memoriam performance. But ever since then, it's felt right for things to become increasingly intense and a bit darker as we get to the grand ensemble at the end, where everybody is swept up in Buffalo Bayou.
Let's hear a little bit more of Bayou Born. So yeah, that section sounds like it's closer to the end. Is that one of those darker passages?
Yes, it's darkening, and the players are physically moving closer and closer to the player who's realizing Buffalo Bayou. In this case, the two players who are going to be realizing Buffalo Bayou. So spatially, everybody moves, and the piece itself shifts ground.
And when you say spatially everyone moves, they're moving with their instruments? They're carting them around the stage?
We often involve a percussionist, who's usually stationary. In this case, two percussionists. The percussionist keeps track of time. The score includes suggestions as to how long the sections are between one convergence with Buffalo Bayou and the next bayou's convergence with Buffalo Bayou. Those are sort of station points. So I give time indications for that. The stationary player keeps track of the time and indicates it to everybody else with special sound. That way everybody knows where they are, and they're slowly moving on onto the Buffalo Bayou player. In this case, two marvelous players, Susie Ibarra and Stephen Schick, and everybody else can move.
Right. But this is what's known as a graphic score, right? It's that image, and that's what they're reading?
And the text.
And the text.
Yeah, right. It allows a lot of freedom, which I like.
So it probably changes quite a lot.
Oh, yeah. The Maze's interpretation is very different from a recent interpretation I heard at the University of Baltimore in Maryland. It's very different each time, and all of them work beautifully, you know, so...
Well, I'm sure Ojai will deliver.
With those players, it couldn't help but be thrilling. I mean, it's a wonderful group of players.
So we're also going to be hearing Spirit Catchers, which is a piece you created in '74, and it's going to be at the festival as a late-night performance on June 7th at 10:30 at night at the Ojai Playhouse. I understand this is 4 people speaking, with you manipulating the vocals live. Is that right?
There are 4 people, and I'm not so much manipulating or changing their vocals as moving the amplification around the circle of speakers so that you hear one speaker for a while and then there's a little overlap and you move to the next one in the circle and it continues to circle around the speakers. What people are talking about, what they're doing is very introspective. I'm asking them not to perform, but to allow memories to surface, memories associated with something they're holding in their laps. And what they're holding in their laps is the sort of object you've never thrown away, no matter how many times you've moved bass. Not necessarily intrinsically valuable, monetarily valuable, but incredibly valuable in the terms of being a repository of precious memories. And so you have this object in your lap, and you're just, with no pressure, no haste, letting your memories surface and telling them to yourself. You're talking to yourself. And it becomes increasingly, I mean, people's voices change when they're remembering something, right? We sort of slow down as we're feeling for the memory. And when the memory begins to crystallize, we accelerate, and then we really speed up when it's right there in front of us, very clear. So there's this beautiful, what I call rhythm of memory that emerges from the piece. And that's what drew me to the whole idea of playing with this element to begin with, that rhythm of memory.
I have so many questions about this. The first one is, who are the people, and are they musicians? How do you choose the participants?
Claire really chose the participants.
She's the music director this year, Claire.
Wonderful director and curator. And she ran them by me, and I was absolutely delighted.
So the people who are going to be performing that, or participating in it rather, are all musicians or composers who are participating in the festival in different ways.
But they're also people who have this feeling about objects, for whom this is a familiar part of their lives, entity in their lives, you know. That's essential.
Wow, that sounds fantastic. We're also going to experience your piece, Housatonic Sound Installation. That's going to be in an unusual location at the Move Sanctuary. I understand this was made from recordings of the Housatonic River from above and below the surface using hydrophones. I guess you were able to get us a sneak peek of your Housatonic River recordings. Let's take a listen to those first. Wow, that's amazing. That's above the surface. I can tell that much. I can hear a boat. I can hear birds. I can hear some kind of big machine. What are we listening to there?
You're listening to the very beginning of the Housatonic River up in the Berkshires in Massachusetts. On one channel is one source of the river, which was coming through a tunnel, a tube, which gave it great acoustics, wonderful resonance. On the other channel, the other source of the river, which was sort of water just dribbling down onto a mossy bed, which gives it a lovely flat sound. And then a train comes by, because there's no way you can deal with the Housatonic without dealing with roads and trains, and I love trains. I love it when a train comes through a recording. So the train does what I call a natural pan. It shifts naturally from one channel to the other. They're the best pans of all. And then actually the piece continues, it shifts to Muddy Pond with those highly vociferous early morning birds, and then I bring in underwater a hydrophone recording of the pond together with the surface sounds of that little environment. And the piece slowly moves you down the Housatonic. I call it a sound map, because it really maps the river through its sounds. And it's an installation. It's accompanied by a large scroll-like map of the river, and a time display, and you can check the time display, check the map, and figure out where you are at any one moment geographically, which satisfies people. It's sort of nice to know where you are, what you're listening to, and any other details like the time of day at which I recorded, the season at which I recorded.
Yeah, it's aural cartography in a way.
Exactly. Yeah.
It feels like all of these two pieces really sort of challenge what music is.
Good.
Good. Okay. I love that. So always our last question is what is some music that has been an inspiration to you? We'd love to hear something that you love. Do you have a piece that you'd like to share with us?
Yes, I love a piece by a British composer, a sound artist, director of the Centre for Research in Sound Hour Practice at the University of the Arts in London, Kathy Lane, terrific composer. She spends a lot of time up in northern Scotland, and she made a sequence of pieces based on sounds she had recorded, field recordings made in the Outer Hebrides, one of which she calls Wind. And it's a significant piece for me because I've been trying to record wind for years, for decades. It's not the easiest thing to record, as you can imagine, by any means. And Kathy nailed it. I mean, with this piece, the piece is super tactile. I feel like I can feel all the surfaces and bits of wood, bits of metal and so on that the wind leaves, the wind stirring up around me. And the wind has a sort of ferocious edge to it, which I like very much. And it's highly pertinent because I've just been up at the source of the Columbia River with Nate Woolley working on our joint project, and I've been trying to record wind up at the lake where the river begins. Not the easiest thing in the world, sitting in a reed bed hoping my mic wouldn't get blown over in the next second or so. So for years I've admired this piece of Kathy's, and for years I've been listening to it and trying to learn from it how to record wind.
Great. Well, let's hear some wind.
The wind's ever present in the Outer Hebrides, Kathy writes, activating sound in everything, in the trees at Stornoway Castle, blowing dried leaves down a deserted road on an empty Stornoway Sunday, in the reeds at Luskentar Harris with wild geese flying overhead, making the gate at the ruined and deserted Ormaclite Castle southwest sing a song it's repeated and varied in numerous gates, fences and sheep pens all over the Hebrides, whipping up a huge surf at beaches all over the west side, making the empty containers at Griminish Harbour on northwest rattle and thunder, driving wind turbines mad, and constantly buffeting a microphone from all sides, which is, of course, the challenge recording wind.
That rhythmic tapping, I wonder what the wind was stirring with that. It's obviously hitting something, but there's a beautiful little percussive kind of a hi-hat sound.
What can you picture?
I mean, I picture a big field with a couple of trees. I'm seeing dark skies. What about you?
But for that tapping sound, what do you picture? What does it suggest to you?
I was getting like a willow or some kind of organic piece hitting I don't know.
I think it's metallic. I think it's part of a house. The outside, it's on the outside of a house. It's loose, whatever it is. It may not be there for much longer.
Yeah, it'll blow away.
It's going to blow away any second, I feel. Something that's loosely attached, just sort of hitting against the side of a house. It's a wonderful rhythm, isn't it?
It is, and it reminds me that so much of what music is wind into instruments, right? I mean, our breath is wind.
Like water, breath is everything, right? It's how we exist. But I find that piece totally engulfing, and I think I will never manage to record wind as superbly as Kathy does in that piece.
Well, I think you should keep trying.
Oh, it's an endless challenge. And wind is one of the things I most love.
Do you have another piece that I guess you might that has something also to do with wind?
Yes, a beautiful electroacoustic piece, meaning a mixture of organic sound and electronics, alchemically mixed by Maggie Payne. She is an alchemist. She processes sound absolutely superbly. And let me read you what she says about this piece, Arctic Winds. And she says, it transports me to the Arctic, where I've never been but dream of. The piece is sparse with occasional frantic windstorms, stirring up vast frozen expanses, everything suspended in near silence, with occasional forays dropping low into blasts of wind. Each sound is crystallized, exaggerated, as in our dreams. The primary sound sources are dry ice and several sizes of ball bearings rolling across a variety of drum heads, attached and unattached. And then, startlingly, she says, I started working on this piece when I had 102-degree temperature coupled with chills for 3 days. I suspect that experiencing those internal extremes conjured up those beautiful Arctic dreams in this somewhat playful piece. And I should mention that but for Maggie, I've spent some time learning how to create natural-sounding pans. She talked to her about that years ago, and she told me how she does it. And it rang all sorts of bells, and ever since then, I've been trying to replicate it myself. So these are my teachers.
The Maggie method of panning. Well, let's have a listen to her version of Wind. Wow, I'm in a sort of meditative place now. That was so special. Thank you so much for spending the time with us, and can't wait to meet you and have you here in Ojai, and maybe we'll have some nice wind for you.
I hope so, Christopher. Thank you. I can't wait to meet you both. Thank you very much for talking with me today.
Thank you so much. We hope you enjoyed our conversations with Jay Campbell and Annea Lockwood on this episode of OJAICAST. Join us for our next episode with more composers and artists featured at this year's festival. OJAICAST was produced by Will Thomas for the Ojai Music Festival, this year, June 5th through the 8th. Visit ojaifestival.org for more information on the program, tickets, and please consider donating to the festival to keep innovative music coming to the Ojai Valley. You can find me on Instagram at Noxon Art or online at ChristopherNoxonArt.com.